Welcome back, everyone, to the Hattie Boydle podcast. I have another solo episode, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their day to listen to my previous podcast. I was pretty blown away with the wonderful feedback that I received from that podcast. So if you have not listened to it, it is Radical Self-Leadership, something that I speak so proudly about in pretty much almost every podcast I've ever been on with someone else. I often talk about how important and the power of radical self-leadership and radical responsibility is. So thank you to everyone who enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed sharing that as well. And I hope today I've got some wonderful new tools and useful skills for you to take away. Something that you might have noticed is that the Hattie Boydle podcast is not, about training and nutrition. It is something much more deeper than that. While at times I may touch on that, and even some of my guests might touch on that because most of the people I know are in some way, shape or form a part of the fitness industry. There's just so much, all of that is everywhere on the internet. I want to make sure that I'm bringing something unique to you guys, something that is more on an internal level, helping you create internal resources so that you can learn to improve your relationship with yourself by improving how you experience yourself and ultimately how you experience the challenges that we're going to be presented with in life. Like, let's be honest, life is a roller coaster of a broad range of many wonderful things, but lots and lots of challenges. And I think something to touch on is, rather than wish for things to be easy, prepare for things to be hard. And when things get hard, ask yourself, how can I find joy in the challenge? This is something that my partner and I, Coben and I, speak about often to each other. Last year or the year before, when we prepped together, we'd say to ourselves, all right, how do we find joy in this challenge, in this moment of discomfort? Because we grow so much in discomfort. If we think about how we have to grow our muscle, it's uncomfortable, it's in ways painful, and it is the only way that we can stimulate new muscle tissue. And in the same way of self-development, we grow so much in hard times. In fact, the challenges that we are presented with often become our greatest victories and the greatest stories that we tell. So my invitation to you, if you're going through a hard time, I know it feels hard, but I promise you, in a year's time, or maybe even 2 years' time, or even in a month's time, you're going to look back and be like, I learned something from that. And life is a series of lessons and experiences. And if we can take time to zoom out at different times of our life and reflect on where we currently are in our present moment and where we've come from and where we want to go, it can be a really, really powerful tool. And the first topic that I actually want to speak about today, because I have a few topics under my belt for today's podcast, is the power of the 3 Ps. And the power of the 3 Ps are, what are you passionate about? Your passion. What are your powers? And what is your purpose? And the reason I want to talk about these 3 Ps is because I want it to help you realign yourself with where you are right now and where you want to go. It is so easy in life to get distracted. We all get distracted. And the beautiful thing about purpose is it's not just to give us a feeling or a fleeting moment. It is to pull us forward in hard times. It pulls us forward in challenging weeks, months, or years. This purpose that we have should anchor us when storms get really challenging and really hard, and then it helps us stay there and not get distracted to pull us back into the past or pull us off the path to the side. So I'm going to start with the first P, which is, what are you passionate about? What are you passionate about? What is a thing that lights up your soul? Something that I am passionate about. Well, there's a couple of things. One is an internal and a personal passion, and one is an external passion. The first internal thing that I'm passionate about is improving my experience of myself, right? Is learning about myself so I can work on being the best version of myself. And that is through all the challenges that life throws at me. I'm not a perfect person. I never say I am. I'm far from that, actually. But what I aim to do is continue to progress in subtle ways every single week, month, year. And so my internal passion of improving myself anchors me. My external passion is helping others see their potential, is helping others improve their relationship with themselves so they can improve their experience of themselves, right? Which is why I do what I do. I help people. My purpose in this world is to help others, is to help them recognize and see their potential, as well as my own, right? So there's a selfish reason, there's a selfish and also a self-care thing. And so what are you passionate about? Write a list of all the things that you're passionate about. There are some people that say passion doesn't bring you money. Does it have to bring you money? It's not just about money. It's about creating enjoyment in this life and loving what you do or how you do it and bringing yourself joy and happiness, right? When we are working on something that is meaningful to us, it brings us that sense of purpose. The next one is your power, or is power. Now, there are two sides to power. Ask yourself, what makes you feel most powerful? What skill sets do you have that give you power? And write them all down. Now, I know for some of you, when it comes to doing internal work, it can be overwhelming, maybe a little bit confronting. Maybe there are parts of you that are like, kind of feel like, is this my ego speaking? Do I look like I'm obsessed with myself? You know, I think the self-obsession thing, again, has two sides. Like, if you're obsessed with your self-development, I don't see that as a bad thing. But if you're obsessed with yourself and it becomes selfish and it is in absence of other people's thoughts or feelings or time, then of course that's a negative thing. But to really get the most out of yourself, you want to know all about you. You want to get to know all parts of you. And to really get you to understand what you have, what qualities you already have, a part of knowing that is, what is your power? What is your superpower? Is it how well you listen to others? Is it your ability to hear things and put it to paper? Is it your ability to read and then, have like a photogenic memory, or, how well do you listen and repeat back? Is it how you are with people? Do you have great social skills? Are you someone who is very charismatic on camera, or you're a great writer? Ask yourself, what powers do you already have? And then on the other side is to ask yourself, what leaves you powerless? And the reason I want to flip it and I want to split the coin on two sides is because the powerless piece is the one where you're going to look to be resourceful. When and where are you going to ask for help? Who do you need to help you? Or maybe what skill sets do you need to learn? So as an example of that, if you are a coach and you're doing every bloody course under the sun, but you don't know how to now translate that into social media content, in ways, it's kind of useless. Not useless in the way of, obviously you're going to be helping your clients, but if you're trying to build your business, if you can't translate that information and simplify it for your niche to understand that you can help them, then that's kind of something that you need to work on. Something I know I need to work on is I'm terrible at short form content because I feel like it misses a lot of nuance and a lot of context. So therefore, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the person in front of me, because what I often hear out loud all the time, and the people that I help the most, are the ones that are confused. The ones that are like, but this says this and we hear this from that and this influencer says this and this person says this. And it can be really confusing because it absolutely misses a lot of context. And so we take this piece of information and we apply it to ourselves, and not realizing it's just not the right piece of information for you. But we don't know that when we're only listening to something in 1 minute and it misses a whole lot of different context. So whenever I speak, I often try and use an example, or I say to put things into context, or to use an example, or to break this down for you, so that you are able to take this information and ask yourself, does this apply to me? Because we are exposed to thousands of units of information daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. Not all of that information applies to us. It might have applied to you 10 years ago, but it might not be now. Or the information that you're trying to apply to yourself might be something that you need to apply in 5 years or in 1 year. So the powerless thing is something that you should get to know about yourself, so now you can do something with it. I know you guys have heard me say this before. With all this information that we know about ourselves, what are we going to do with it, right? If we're taking all this information, we want to use it to be resourceful and take action instead of trying to beat ourselves with a stick. Okay, so we want to know what powers we have, what helps us feel powerful, right? How do we feel empowered? Okay, I'm going to give you a number of different examples because the quality of the questions that you ask yourself are going to improve the quality of the answers that you give yourself, right? And that's a really important piece here as we start to learn. There's no such thing as a right or wrong question. It's what might be a better question. And sometimes we got to, like an onion, peel back all these layers, ask another one, ask another one, ask another one. Why? How? What? Till we really get to the core and we go, yeah, that feels right. That does something to me. And then the last piece is, what is your purpose? Right? What brings you purpose, gives you purpose, what pulls you forward, what really anchors you into this journey of life, right? Or what is the purpose of the business that you're creating, the career you want, the life you want to live? Who do you want to help? Okay, and purpose and passion, they kind of layer each other. We say what we're passionate about, might be passionate about helping people. Okay, cool. That's a really broad topic. What is the purpose of that passion? Like, who is it that you want to speak to and help? Some of you might be so passionate about helping mums or single mums because that is you. And your purpose is to help give single parents, single mothers, single fathers, whatever it is. Your purpose is to help them realize that they can do this on their own, that they are not alone, that they can work on themselves while looking after others. Right? And you can see how they layer. So in a way, you can put them in like a circle. And you can, however you like to create things visually. I'm a visual person. And you can make it however you want. You might just be a writer. You might put things on different papers. You might want to brainstorm, color coordinate things. However you want to do this really cool piece of homework, we can call it. And it's something you can continue to refine. It's something that you can go back on and fall back on and read over and over again. And you might step away and come back and be like, feels like it's missing a little bit. Or you might say, maybe that's who I was a couple of years ago, but actually who I want to help now is this. An example for me is when I first started in the industry, or not when I first started in the industry, but when I first started the Sports Model Project, which is a company that I'm no longer a part of. I now have Flex Method, which is one of the reasons I've started Flex Method. I first really wanted to just work with athletes because I was very inspired by my childhood and my gymnastics teams where we were all athletes that trained together and competed together, and we were a team. And I saw so much strength in that, and I saw so much community and so much support and cheerleading amongst females that I was so inspired that I wanted to create that for myself as an adult. I didn't quite have it, so I wanted to create it. And then over the years, I've come to realize that that's actually not my passion anymore. My passion is I want to help everyone, anyone, to improve their experience of themselves. You don't have to be an athlete to get on stage, but I want to teach you how to have an athlete's mindset. That's actually something I'm very passionate about, because having an athlete's mindset has helped me in every different area of my life. From an internal relationship with myself, where I looked at my body, I was like, wow, I train this to do anything. If I put in time, effort, consistency, if I track my progress, if I outperform myself, if I look at my habits as an investment to myself, which is something I'm going to touch on very soon, then imagine what I could create. And that became more my purpose. And I was like, I want to teach so many other women how to do this, because I wanted to help shift the association with building and getting strong and strength in the gym. And I wanted to help shift women from going in just to lose weight, to start to build, to be strong, to be confident, to be empowered, to think of body recomposition, not just losing fat. I wanted to help women empower themselves, because I knew if I was helping a mother, if I was helping her improve her relationship with herself, well, guess how that was going to impact her daughters or her kids, or even her relationship with her partner, or even her sister, or even her mum. And so I looked at this, right? It's like a lock and key. I looked at this master key and I was like, how can I help this person? Well, I need to lead myself, which is self-leadership. And so teaching an athlete's mindset is something that I teach all of my clients in Flex Method. How do we learn to outperform ourselves? How do we learn to use our habits and look at them as a self-investment? We're not paying for a coach, we're investing in myself, in ourselves. And I think, again, language is a really important tool that we can use when it comes to developing the relationship that we want with ourselves. Language is a weapon of love or destruction. How are we going to use it? Well, I want to use it to reframe how I experience myself, how I can pull myself forward towards my passion or my purpose. And remember, we're going to have multiple things that we're passionate about. You know, I told you, I have an internal passion and I have an external passion. I have one that is selfish, you know, it's about me. And then one that is selfless, which is about others. But ultimately, they layer. Because I know as I improve myself, I teach others. And so the beautiful thing about self-leadership is doing the hard work. Leaders go first, right? And to truly lead, we don't just lead from the front. We're not above. We are with everyone, the people that we are trying to lead, right? And we are teaching and helping and guiding in the same way that we do that for ourselves, which is why I'm so passionate about that continuous inner evolution and self-development of myself. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. It is so challenging at times, but this is the work. Remember, don't ask for things to be easy. Prepare for them to be hard. And that is the same way when we're starting to get to know ourselves. So the 3 Ps that we spoke about is what are you passionate about? What are the powers that you have? What leaves you powerless? Because these are the things that you're going to, either work on, take action on, in the way that we're going to develop a skill, some knowledge, ask for help. And then, what is your purpose? And the purpose is the piece that is going to anchor you throughout any storm that you go through, because we're going to have storms, and that is going to pull you forward through all the challenging moments that you have in your life, because we're going to have many, especially as we get older. But it's going to be your anchor, and it's going to remind you of what you're here to do. So I hope you find that little piece of homework helpful. And if you are going to do this exercise, please reach out. I would love to hear how you're going. And if you have any further questions, I'd love to be able to help you on that. This is going to translate me into the next piece, or the next topic that I want to talk about, which is how we see failure. Now, failure is something that, or improving our relationship with failure, I think is something that we most of us navigate through. And something that I love and have learned from bodybuilding and building my body is that failing is a huge part of success. And actually, as I learnt to be okay with failure in training, I actually learnt to be okay with failure outside of training. And this is where this athlete mindset comes in. In fact, there are things that can coexist, right? Like failure and success. They coexist because if we are reaching for success, we are going to have many challenges that we're faced with. We are going to fail many times. But the failure is something that we can look at as a lesson, and then we don't do that again, right? We learn what doesn't work, and then we problem solve, and we continue to work on what does work. And it is this lovely layering approach. So we're never really failing. We're really just learning. And what I believe is the ultimate failure, and I'm going to share a story with you, is the ultimate failure is when we don't see or acknowledge any of our success. That is ultimate failure. And I remember Tony Robbins saying that out loud. I went to one of his courses in 2017, and he said our ultimate failure is when we can never acknowledge our success. And that hit me really hard. Because in 2016, I was getting ready for the world titles. I had a calendar, and I had put on that calendar world champion with a big crown. And I marked off every single day that I did absolutely everything that I could to be that world champion. I showed up as a world champion in my process every day. I trained hard. I visualized myself on that stage. I used visualization when I was training, when I was, how I wanted to be on stage. Before I went to bed, it was the last thing I thought about. When I woke up in the morning, it was the first thing I thought about. I showed up as an incredible athlete every single day till I got to the world titles. And I won that year. I won the 2016 world titles. I dethroned the 4-time world champion, who still to this day is one of my biggest inspirations. She's the one who actually, inspired me to start with the WBFF, which is now called FMG. And I beat my idol. And it was the most bizarre and surreal experience. And I remember feeling guilt that I had beaten her. And I saw her the next day and I said, I'm so sorry. And it was such a weird thing because that was what I'd worked on every single day. I showed up every single day. It was so much intention, so much purpose, so much drive. And I accomplished what I'd set out to accomplish. But within that 24 hours of winning the world titles, seeing her, and then letting kind of all the dust settle, I asked myself, was I really good enough? Was I really the champion? Did I really deserve that? And I completely robbed myself of being a champion that year. If someone said, oh, you're the champion, I would feel my whole insides just shrivel up and be like, oh my God, do you think I am the champion? It was I really robbed myself of that experience. And the next year, when I went for the world titles, I lost the world titles. And I haven't been a world champion ever since. But it literally took me losing the world title to recognize that I was a champion. Because it wasn't till it was taken away, until I realized that the pressure that I was placing on myself was my own stuff, that was my own ego, that I hadn't actually let anyone down, because at that time I thought, oh my God, I've let everyone down, I'm a failure. I realized, well, that was not true. And we all have stories that we tell ourselves. And most of our suffering isn't from what happens. It is from the stories that we associate. Right? So I had associated my loss with letting everyone down. And I also, the reason I questioned whether I was good enough to win is because, I have a story of not good enough throughout my whole life. And as the sport that I'm in is very subjective. I really questioned a lot of it. And, the ultimate failure was that I didn't see my success. I completely robbed myself of that success, which is so interesting now, because now I proudly say, yeah, I'm a world champion, because who I am to the core and how I show up every day for myself, my habits, what I identify with, my values, my integrity, my love and passion for my own evolution of bodybuilding, I know that I have a champion mindset. And so being a champion is not just someone else telling you that you are. You also have to tell yourself that you are. And you do that, and you don't just tell it, you show it by creating evidence of who you are and what you do privately and publicly. Because what you do in solitude is the evidence that you really know about yourself. So the greatest story that we will ever know is a story that we tell about ourselves to ourselves. And every single day in everything that we do, we are constantly collecting evidence about ourselves. Whether we are, resilient, whether we are disciplined, whether we can do hard things, right? Everything that we do behind closed doors in solitude on your own gives you the greatest piece of evidence. It's not what we do publicly. While yes, that contributes, it's actually what we do privately, which is why that radical self-leadership is so important. Because if we are leading others, to truly lead others, we must do what we say we do, right? And so this evidence is the thing that helps us it either gives us confidence or it strips confidence away. So it's not just about the action. An example of this is the times that you do the extra spoonful that you don't track. It's not just the fact that that's extra calories. That's kind of like whatever. It's the evidence that you are creating in your habits that you do, right? That you're trying to avoid, but you know that you do, right? Or you're trying to hide, but you know that you do it. And so we have to have a level of self-awareness, and everything starts with self-awareness, to make true long-term changes. Because remember, our habits are things that we identify with. Our habits and our language. And these are incredibly powerful, more powerful than what you realize. So just to sink that in, the story that we tell about ourselves to ourselves is the most powerful and impactful story that we can ever tell. Right? So for those of you who are having a little bit of a challenging time, it's time to tune in and bring yourself back to the 3 Ps. Ask yourself, what is the intention behind why I want to do what I do? Intention is really powerful. It also shapes our experience. Right? 2 people can go to the gym. Both will train. They'll train. Both people will track their nutrition. Both people will apply some sort of progressive overload. But what shapes the result, and ultimately the experience, is the intention behind why we do what we do. So if your intention is to go and restrict, punish, not good enough, it's a really negative intention, how you do your training, how you do your nutrition, and then when you look at yourself in the mirror, if this is all negative self-talk, then your entire experience of that thing is going to be negative. It's not all you're going to see is not good enough. More. Versus your intention to go to the gym or to start exercising might be to look after yourself. You want to be there for your kids. You're sick of feeling tired all the time. You want to improve your fitness. You might have gone to the GP and got your bloods done and they said, hey, you need to start exercising, right? And you're like, okay, I want to get healthy. These are all really powerful and positive intentions. I want to get strong. I'm inspired by the people that I'm seeing around me. I want to be like that. I want to learn to look after myself. In fact, I want to learn to invest in myself, right? And your habits are an investment. I look at all my habits as self-care, right? I look at training, my daily walks, the food that I choose, even how often I'm social. That's an investment to myself, to my whole self as a human being. Not just the way I look. In fact, the way I look is like the end byproduct. It's actually how I feel. So the intention to start looking after your nutrition, right? Are you going to start restricting food groups, or are you going to learn how to eat all foods in moderation? Two of them actually have very different associations subconsciously, because people who limit foods and limit food groups often have a negative association with certain foods, which when they eventually eat them, which they do, they then associate that with bad. And in reverse, whenever they're always eating healthy things, then that's what they identify themselves with. So we actually want to learn how to have more of a neutral ground. And rather than it being good and bad, look at it as, how do I invest in myself? What am I doing to support myself? Again, language is important. Invest, support, love, nurture, outperform, grow, evolve, transform. These are all really powerful words that I think should be used and practiced and said daily. When we journal, when we do affirmations, when we're creating our plan, so that is the purpose, that is the intent, the intention, and that's how you're going to set yourself up. And so any little subtle improvement, whether it's training hard in the gym, learning to track your nutrition, seeing the result of your efforts, whether it's when you're building muscle, which is something I'm going to talk about, whether it's losing fat, okay? When we see this outcome, it's not the outcome. It is the result of the work that you have been doing, the process that you have been following, the intention, the drive, the purpose, the support, the evolution, the transformation, right? Because we are always transforming. The body never stays the same, right? Every single day it looks a little bit different. Every single day we feel a little bit different, right? And then over time, we're slowly starting to make these little subtle changes. Ultimate failure is when we cannot acknowledge our success, even and most importantly, the subtle pieces of success. Because remember, those little subtle improvements over time, they're the things that build confidence. It's not what we do once, it's what we do over and over, right? Let's look at that again. I always want to show you like black and white, polar opposites. It's not what we do once. It's what we do over and over and over again. Our choices have impact. So one time you lick the spoon or you have an extra spoon, it's like, okay, you acknowledge that you did that. I'm not going to do that again. And then you don't do it. No problem. But if you do that and then you do it over and over again, now you're creating a habit. And that habit is going to have a subconscious effect on the evidence that you create about yourself. And you're going to say, I have a bad habit. And we're going to start to use that language. So I hope all of this makes sense for you guys, because I want to really make sure that I'm helping you kind of address some of the internal conflicts that you might be having, or even just help you kick a few habits, right? Because it takes consciousness or self-consciousness, conscious awareness to make these changes. So your intention is really important behind why you do what you do, because that is ultimately going to shape the experience of how you experience what you're going to do, which is going to lead me into my final topic for today, which is how we improve, how we can learn to improve our association with weight gain. Now, most of us in our past have associated weight gain with bad or negative habits, right? Now, those two words have a certain feeling in the system, right? When we gain weight, often it is from when we have not been conscious about the food that we're eating. We might be overeating a lot, drinking a lot. Essentially, we might be doing all the things that we identify as bad. And so when we see that scale go up, we are just reminded of all of the unhealthy or unhelpful or negative habits that we have been doing. And so this association with the weight going up, it's barely ever positive, because for most people, it's barely ever been something that has been a controlled weight gain. Now, when we think about building our bodies, to do it properly and to do it well and to be empowered by it, we are going to follow a similar process in what we might do when it comes to losing fat. Now, something that I've noticed that I'm really passionate about speaking about at the moment is building muscle. All right, everyone that is out there telling you how to lose fat, I want to teach you how to build muscle. I want to help you feel empowered and empowered and strong and enjoy actually building muscle and finding joy in the discomfort. Okay, so this association that we might have had in the past, that most of us have had, like this is the biggest challenge that everyone has, is when we see the scale go up, we feel bad about it. But it is often almost like the mirror to the habits that you've been doing. That's why you feel bad. So when I look at all the women that I've helped who have had successful builds, who have felt empowered and in control of their builds, because ultimately that's what most people want, is they haven't had a problem with the association of the weight gain, because everything that they have done, their process, their training intention, their training effort, their intention behind the process, tracking their nutrition, prioritizing their meal planning, getting really good quality sleep, getting as strong as they can, pushing that intensity, when they've seen the scale go up or their glutes improve or their quads improve, that has been a mirror to the work that they have been putting in, which they have been in control of. So their association with weight gain is not negative. It's positive. It's powerful because it is the reflection of their effort. It is a reflection of their intention. They are investing in building their future bodies, because we know that the body that you want is not in fat loss. It's in your building seasons. And like we have many different seasons in life, we can look at the different seasons that we put our body through in the same way. But ultimately, the process that we use to build our bodies, to change our bodies, is probably a better word, is the exact same, right? Whether you're going to lose fat, maintain your body weight, or build muscle, these are the things that you are going to need to do. You are going to need to track your nutrition, organize it, prepare it, track it in your MyFitnessPal, or follow a meal plan. And it is going to be calorie controlled towards the goal that you have. So that's the first thing that you're going to need to do. The second is you are going to make sure, or need to make sure, that you are getting adequate sleep, because sleep is ultimately the control center of how your body is going to respond to training, your nutrition, and even your learning, your emotional status, your hunger cues. Sleep is essentially the lock and key, the master key for all of this. The third thing is you are going to need to train with intensity. Whether your goal is fat loss, maintaining your current physique, or building muscle, you need to apply effort in the gym, okay? Effort in the gym is working within that proximity to true muscular failure across at least 80% of your training. Again, these are all things that we can control, right? Do you want to feel empowered? Okay, look at what you can control. The other one is get as strong as you can. All my clients get strong in their fat loss phase, right? My clients get strong in their building phase. If you can focus on performance in the gym, it can, again, disassociate you with this thing that we're constantly seeing in the mirror. One of the greatest things I ever learned to do was strength training. It was a thing that made me feel so empowered and looked at my body as this amazing tool or instrument that I could really play with, that I could start to build by the effort that I put in. And it didn't care what I looked like. All it cared about was putting a little bit more weight on the bar week to week. And ultimately, that set up my intention behind how I trained. So as I drove to training, I wouldn't get on calls. I would put music on, the music on that I'd be listening to in my session to help prime my nervous system. And the intention behind my training started before I even got to the gym. I would even visualize my lifts on my way to the gym, how it was going to look, how it was going to feel, how hard I was going to work. I noticed the adrenaline that would start to come up into my body. I was like in the session. I was almost priming myself. I knew the work ahead, and part of that felt really scary, but also exciting in the other way, because that anxiety that I had, I was actually using it to prepare myself, to set myself up for success, to be ready for the work ahead, but also to make sure that I was warming up correctly. I was tuning in. How was the body going to feel? Was I feeling strong? Was things feeling smooth? Or did I have to spend a little bit more time warming up? And if we think about training is probably the only time in our life that we are doing it purely for ourselves. Some of you might go to the gym so you look hot for someone else. That will be short-lived, I promise you. That's not going to be your reason forever, and you're going to realize it's going to keep you miserable. But if you come in and the ultimate goal is for you to be empowered, then I'm really curious as to know how that might feel for you. If you just shut everyone else out and you purely focus on you coming in to outperform you, to build you, to invest in you, to support you, to empower you, right, to push your own boundaries. I'm curious as to know how that's going to feel for you and how that actually shifts the way you set up your training. And then I'll be curious to know how that leaks into your nutrition, because that ultimately happened to me. It started with training, this intensity to just be better. And then I looked at, well, how do I be better? What's the support system for my training? My nutrition, my sleep, right? That triad of things are so important when it comes to just building our body. I'm not just talking about fat loss, and I'm not just talking about muscle gain. I'm talking about it all. And these are things that we can control. And ultimately what we're trying to do is control most of the things in life. The things that we can control is the things that we want to control. And then we need to learn to respond versus react to external things, right? And this is the part of this self-development kind of bubble that we're in, right? So look at the things that you can do to support yourself. We've got language. We've got the power of the 3 Ps: purpose, power, passion, right? We've got our intention, setting ourselves up. We can do this on a daily, weekly, monthly schedule. If you want to set your intentions for the day in all the different realms, you know, as you are in your career, as a mom, as a partner, with your training, right? There's so many things that we can anchor to and work on so that we are learning to get the most out of ourselves. Like ultimately, that's what we want to do. Remember, with all this information that we learn about ourselves, what are we going to do with it? Right? We can be inspired by what we see on social media. We can be inspired by others, but only use it for inspiration. Don't use it to beat yourself up with, because that's no longer inspiration. That is just the act to compare. Right? And comparison is the thief of joy. We all do it from time to time. And most of us aren't really willing to do what someone else might be doing. And the other piece is, most of us become jealous, or we compare ourselves to one small piece of someone's life, right? Not actually everything that they go through. When we see really highly successful people, most of us say we want that success. We might want their, the wealth that they have, or the success of their business, or whatever it is that you say you want. But if you want to have that, you have to be willing to have everything that comes along with that. And most people aren't, because successful people are under a lot of pressure all the time. And most people can't deal with pressure very well. So you have to realize and recognize what level of pressure are you willing to have, because that's ultimately going to drive what level of success you're going to have as well, right? And then an important piece there is to have a really good team as well. But a part of success is learning and failing at the same time. So quite a lot of information in there, a lot of different pieces to that association with weight gain. To wrap it up, what I want you to do if you're someone who is being challenged by the association of weight gain, there's a few questions I want to ask yourself. What do you make it mean? What do you make it mean? Is that really true? What is the worst that is going to happen? And then on the other side is, how can you take this information and do something with it? How can you shift your association with the gaining weight by asking yourself, what habits are you willing to do to help improve your body? Right? So most of us, when we're asking for help, we might be reaching out to a coach. We do it because we're doing it from a place of we don't know how to do it on our own. And actually, the part that most people don't know how to do on their own is the build. Right? That's where most people need a lot of help. So breaking these things down into small manageable pieces, which is what are you going to do with your nutrition? If you don't know what to do with your nutrition, I would start with looking at your maintenance calories and staying with maintenance. And what I love about maintenance is the maintenance block is there to help you set yourself up for realigning your habits and your skills around nutrition, getting yourself familiar with your meals, meal timing, practicing that training effort, okay? And building a little bit of confidence first, because we can't build muscle without that effort piece. And most of us, most of our emotional tax comes from the habits that we have around nutrition. So we want to try and minimize that emotional tax by putting things in place, right? So you might need a meal plan. You might reach out to a coach. You might reach out to Flex Method, say, I need a meal plan. I want to build my body. Or you might start with macros because you're someone that wants a little bit more autonomy. You want a little bit more variety. But just remember, if you are someone who is a little bit unanchored and a little bit feeling a little bit lost or overwhelmed, too much variety or too much flexibility can be detrimental. And diet, decision-making fatigue when you're overwhelmed, or decision-making when you're overwhelmed can often make you feel more overwhelmed. So for those of you who are like really, really stuck and you don't know what to do, I would actually opt for a meal plan. Whether it's you reach out to Flex for a meal plan or you create your own meal plan yourself. And that's the thing that you're going to stick to. And you're going to show yourself consistency, right? Build confidence with consistency. Just eat the same thing every day, track your weight daily, train hard, and look at your average. And over 4 weeks, if the average has stayed the same, that's your maintenance. Now, what you've done there on an internal level is started to build confidence and also evidence that you are ready to build muscle. You've done it. You've got the first foundation. Then I want you to continue that same practice and just increase your calories a little bit. And when I say a little bit, might be 10%. It's very conservative. And you're going to rinse and repeat the training effort, the progressive overload. Train to get strong as fuck in the gym. Prioritizing your sleep, prioritizing your nutrition. And then you're going to weigh yourself every day. You're not going to associate your weight with anything. You're just going to take your daily average. Okay, you're going to take your daily weights, and over 2 weeks, you're going to take your average. And what we want to see is just a very small increase. It might be like 100 to 200 grams of that average go up. And you are doing everything perfect when it comes to building muscle. The increase that we're looking for when it comes to building muscle is so small. Whereas with fat loss, we can lose 500 up to a kilo, a week, and that still be considered healthy. And that's super, super easy to track, knowing that that's mostly going to be fat, mostly, unless you've got poor sleep and you're highly stressed and you're not weight training and you've got really low carbs. But on the other side, when it comes to building muscle, we need patience and we need persistence. Right? So we need to wrap patience and persistence and consistency around the tracking the nutrition, eating in a conservative surplus, training with intensity, getting strong as we can, and getting adequate sleep. They're the things that are essentially going to get that ball rolling, and we're going to start to see that accumulation of the work over time. So something that I do with myself when it comes to a build, I don't do my photos every week. I do them once a month because I know that it takes a little bit longer for me to see some changes. Whereas in a fat loss phase, I'll take it every single week. So for those of you who are building muscle, if you find taking your photos every week better for accountability, do it weekly. But don't be disheartened that you don't see so much change, because it doesn't work the same way in fat loss versus doing it maybe once every 2 weeks or once every 4 weeks. Know what you know about yourself. What is going to keep you most accountable? Make things as easy and accessible as you can when it comes to tracking your measurements. Have the one day every week that's when you do your check-in. Okay, make some markers. Anchor yourself to some things that you do not compromise on. Ask yourself, what am I going to commit to myself? What am I going to do daily that is commitment? Is it to set your intention in the morning, track your nutrition, show up and train hard, make sure you get 7 or 8 hours sleep, like write your non-negotiables, and then say, this is my support system, right? We're going to use language to empower ourselves. And we're going to start to step away from emotionally attaching ourselves to the scale. And we want to attach ourselves to the process, right? Because that's the place where you're going to feel most empowered. Because remember, you're going to start to identify all the habits that you're doing to yourself. You're going to say, I'm disciplined, right? Discipline isn't just fat loss. Discipline is doing what you said you would do. That's discipline, right? And especially doing what you said you would do in uncomfortable moments, right? Being disciplined to your food when you're eating a little bit more and there's parts of you that are kind of a little bit scared, right? Remember, the evidence that we create about ourselves is going to give us confidence, or it's going to pull confidence away, right? We're trying to build confidence. We're trying to build evidence about ourselves that we can do hard things, that we can build our bodies, right? Be empowered by the choices that you make. Reframe things to reframe the experience, or rename it to reframe it, right? Look at things from a different perspective. If you are controlling all the controllables, you are on the path, right? And when you see your body shift and change, that is an accumulation of the work, the love, right? The commitment, the contract, the verbal agreements that you are having with yourself. And when you look in the mirror, what you're going to see is the empowered woman, the strong woman, the woman that's working hard, the woman that's building a body, the woman that is transforming, the woman that is evolving, right? The woman that is in control. And ultimately, that is going to improve your experience. And the weight gain is no longer going to be this negative experience. It's going to be an empowered experience. And another thing to wrap things up with, something that I've found very helpful when it comes to building my body, is in the same way that I have, a goal weight when I'm getting ready for a show, I give myself a goal weight to reach towards when it comes to my build. Okay, so 2018, my top weight was like 62 kilos. Now it's 64. So 2 kilos might not seem much, but 2 kilos on my small frame, that's quite a lot, right? And so over the years that I've built more confidence with myself and knowing what really it takes to make the improvements that I want to make in building my body, I recognized that these weight caps that I was giving myself were limiting my growth. And so I was like, okay, the first time I did it, I had to reach out for a coach because I couldn't do it on my own. With all the knowledge that I had, my ability, my confidence, I still had a limitation. So I reached out for a coach. And you might be the same. You might have all this knowledge. You might be a trainer listening, but you still have this limitation, and that's the thing that's holding you back. It's time to reach out for a coach. We don't have to do it on our own. Like I owe so much to my growth now from working with coaches, right? Helping someone pull me forward, right? Reminding myself of what I'm here to do, right? Guiding me and helping me build trust within myself and, of course, the process. So giving myself a goal weight to work towards in terms of body weight, which was higher, more, right? To build, we're going to get bigger. I pushed lots of different performance goals, right? I was trying to win at every cost, right? And every exercise ultimately had some sort of performance goal attached to it. Even things like a lateral raise or a lat pull down, right? It wasn't just my compound lifts. It was pretty much every exercise I did, I wanted to improve on, because I knew that every single rep, every single hard set, every single session is an investment to my body. And this is the same for you. If you can create the intention of every single session, every single rep as the investment to your body, feel the difference in how you show up for yourself. And the last one is I gave myself calorie goals, right? And carbohydrate goals. Right? Most people want to limit themselves to how much food they can eat. And again, we have to earn the right to eat more. And what I mean by that is if we are not training hard and getting strong and putting in progressive overload and training within that high effort that is required to stimulate new muscle tissue, there's no point in eating more. I think training effort and training intensity, and when I talk about intensity, I'm not talking about sweating. I'm talking about the intensity of the set working within that proximity to failure. If that's not there, eating more will not build more muscle. It's going to do the thing that you don't want it to do, which is to gain more fat. So we need to be the effort and intention to work hard and encourage ourselves to work hard and get strong is what ultimately is going to help us eat more food and build that muscle. And so I knew that if I trained really hard, it would lead me to this other place, which was to eat more food. I really wanted to try and eat like 500 grams of carbohydrates. And every time I do a build, ultimately that's what I work towards. And, it took me 6 months to get there. It took me 6 months to go from 280 grams of carbs up to 500. So it wasn't this thing that happened really quickly. Remember, over 6 months, I was working and over time just giving myself small increases of carbohydrates while monitoring all my other metrics, which was performance, my weight. Okay, I couldn't increase my food if my weight was going beyond the strategy of my total body increase. Otherwise, I knew it wasn't going to be more muscle. So again, in the same way that we have strategies when it comes to losing fat, we have strategies in the way that we build muscle and how much body weight we want to increase over the month. So it's not blind leading the blind. It is a strategy and a process, which is why we come back to what we can control. And those two things really empowered me in, again, that purpose pulling me forward. No matter how uncomfortable I felt, it pulled me back to my intention for the process, why I'm going to pre-plan, track, organize, and set myself up like that, because that was what was important to me. Now, balance is a funny thing, right? Most of us, trying to find this balance of building our bodies, being social, not being too, I guess, obsessed maybe might be the word with the process. I think balance for everyone looks different at different times, and I really do believe you have to earn the right to be flexible. The further away you are from the goal, the less flexibility I believe that you should have. But again, it just depends on what your intensity to building your body is. If you're a lifestyle client that is just looking to build their body over a longer period of time, then your balance is going to look very different from someone who needs to build a certain amount of muscle in a year before getting on stage. And I do believe that balance is, I like to use an 80-20 rule, and I can apply that to all these different areas of my life. 80-20 rule when it comes to my nutrition, on a micro level, when I talk about a micro level, I'm talking about 80% of my food is wholesome, unprocessed food, 20% is soul food on a daily basis. Over the week, I look at 80% of my meals being tracked by me, made from home, and 20% is eating it out. because I'm a social person. But I know that being social, you know, I can track as best as I can. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But I'm obviously going to be quite aware of what I choose, and then I have to organize the rest of my nutrition around eating out. So that gives me a little bit of balance. And then over the month, again, 80-20 rule over the month, 80% of my meals are tracked by me, 20% of my meals are eaten out. And that to me gives me a sense of balance. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. I'm definitely not someone who says you can't eat out at all. In fact, I think it's really important to have date nights with your partners or, eat out with your kids because, again, you are such a model for them and how you show up is really important. The language that you use is very important. And so we want to teach our friends, families, partners, kids that we can be social and we can be self-aware. And I think that's the biggest piece there. So I'm going to wrap this one up, trying to keep it a little bit short and sweet. But as always, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. Please reach out if you need anything. I'd love to know how you went with your 3 Ps or if this podcast episode was helpful. I love you guys. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And remember, we have 2 hands, one for helping ourselves and one for helping others.